We have cornered Gaul on Vaadwaur Prime after the Alliance fleet we've worked so hard to construct drove him and his forces to ground on their desolated homeworld of the former Empire. We beam down and stand in the ruins of the Vaadwaur's hubris from 926 years ago. Their original empire and superiority was overthrown then by an alliance of species tired of their xenophobic expansion, and it seems Gaul has learned nothing from his own history. We must be hot on his trail. His escape pod is still smoking from re-entry, and Cadet Tan surmises we are merely minutes behind. This cave system ahead looks like the only likely route, so we set off into its depths. But we are not alone, it seems. There are Vaadwaur soldiers here too, and they're not looking to take prisoners. We open fire at the entrenched soldiers. Clearly Gaul has instructed them to cover his escape. The man continues to run from us, throwing his soldiers against us to keep us at bay. And it's working to buy him time, but we cannot let him escape. If he does, he may be able to rally more support for his crusade, and we need to expose him as corrupted by the neural parasites to discredit his actions as being in the Vaadwaur's best interests. This entire skirmish seems to have been the result of some malevolent force stirring up the Vaadwaur, usurping their leadership and furnishing them with the required technology to fight against the rest of the quadrant. Some commanders, like our temporary ally, Eldex, believe in the Vaadwaur's superiority and right to rule, but they cannot stand the notion that it's not for their cause that they are fighting for. Who knows if taking out Gaul will lead to a ceasefire, but if anything, at least the Vaadwaur will be free to decide their own fate, and that avenue has a greater chance at peace. We enter a large hangar bay, perhaps even the same one documented by the USS Voyager in 2376, as it is complete with Pythus-class fighters, small fighter vessels from the initial Vaadwaur Empire that are both atmospheric flight capable and for space travel. Although here they now sit, unused and gathering even more dust, as the new Vaadwaur supremacy chose to embrace their new gifted advancements in technology, likely using their orbital shipyards to construct their current generation of starships. Down here it's a mausoleum of relics out of their time. It too is filled with soldiers using the ships as cover, so we'll have to wend our way through the layout to secure our rear as we press on. The skirmish in here can take some time as the enemies are spread all over the hangar floor and tend to stay very mobile, meaning you'll have to hunt them down. The most dangerous adversary in here, however, is the Overseer, who begins to brute force his way through our phaser fire to tackle us with augmented strength. Seems that we have a bluegill infested member of the Supremacy to deal with here, and this shows Gaul has some level of oversight over even these superior officers. After the Titan falls, we push up the other side of the hangar onto its overlook, ready to continue our pursuit. We have to unlock a security door that has been hastily sealed, and soon we reach a server room of sorts with more Vaadwaur sheltered behind banks of computers. These ones go down much quicker than the ones in the hangar, and I'm not even sure that these are even full soldiers, maybe just the techies. Gaul, if he cared about his people, he wouldn't be continuing this. It should have ended in orbit. No, it should have ended 926 years ago. After navigating some more corridors, we enter back into the brazen winds of the desolate surface.
Welcome, my friends. You should have joined me when you had the chance. Your persistence is a credit to your race. But it is time for this sad story to end. Your blood will drench the sands of our blasted home.
Gaul, if you want to save your people, you'll stop this now. You in cuffs is the only way this ends without more slaughter. Gaul doesn't reply, and we're forced to engage the troops he's just brought onto the battlefield. This circular arena may have once been a landing pad or something similar, but now it's a combat zone being watched over from on high by Gaul, like an emperor over his Colosseum.
Congratulations. You have earned the right to die on the hallowed soil of Vaadwaur Prime.
Drop pods containing transporters fall into place in this landing zone as they did in the Teray homeworld. Whether or not these came from orbit or somewhere else, surface to surface, we cannot say, but I've not heard from the Anglia or the fleet in orbit, which could mean they're engaged with the returned enemies from Cartella or a reorganised push from Gaul's forces.
Although you are clearly not the brightest aliens in the universe, your bravery is admirable. And I do respect Starfleet for ending my people's long twilight. Surrender now, and I give you my word I will spare your people. You and the other leaders will need to be executed, of course, but that is only to maintain order. Personally, I bear you no ill will.
Muzzle it.
That's twice you've refused my generosity. I should be insulted, but your pitiful blindness makes it difficult.
And I feel only contempt for you and your delusions. With that stall out of the way, bluegill delvers erupt from the ground, the grown forms of the neural parasites if they persist without a host. These critters, as the name suggests, can burrow under the ground at a quick pace, and they're accompanied by the more mature ravagers, so even the Vaadwaur's homeworld has become a breeding ground for these nightmares. As the last delver pops, I manage to revive Zox the medic and my team put down a flying pestilent.
The Vaadwaur controlled this quadrant once, and our new allies have only made us stronger. Is that the best you've got?
Now's your chance! Defeat Gaul!
Gaul didn't even step foot into the ring willingly. Eldux had to jump him to force him to face us. Seconds within learning of Gaul's location, we get a call from the Doctor aboard the Hierarchy vessel.
I thought you were I took the liberty of scanning Gaul. He does not have a passport. And I don't think he ever did.
What? That's impossible!
His ship's advanced sensors have made a bioscan of Gaul and discovered that he does not contain a neural parasite, nor any signs that he ever did. The ramifications of this are troubling, but we'll have to deal with it later. This battle against Gaul is tough. He has sturdy shielding and body armour, and he deploys numerous anchor drones to slow down our away team and support drones to assist him. But sure enough, he can be knocked over, winces in pain when we fire at him, and never once tries to charge us with reckless abandon of the overseers that we've seen in the past. He deploys healing fields to regenerate his health and strafes us to try to outflank our team, always on the move. He's not fighting like the parasites, he's fighting like a tactician.
The Vaadwaur Empire will never fall, and you will not even be a footnote in our glorious history.
Using the timely arrival of more drop transporters, Gaul flees the field as his reinforcements cover his retreat. Alongside the fanatically indoctrinated Vaadwaur soldiers are swarms of the chitinous parasitic flyers and delvers. Tarsi and Bizarre have fallen to their assault, and soon our medic is knocked out by the gun butt of an enemy commander. Nulia is cornered by delvers, so blasting them off her lets her cover me as I try to stabilise the crew. But just as things look to be at their worst, there's a lull in the assault, providing enough time to regroup and heal. Gaul returns with another wave of soldiers, his shields and health restored, and the fight begins anew, but this time we're beaten and bruised, and I'm fairly sure Zox has a concussion.
We cannot be stopped. Time after time we rise from the ashes, and we are stronger for doing so.
Your logic is flawed, Gaul. You are already defeated. The evil I mistakenly unleashed on the galaxy ends at last.
My people and the galaxy must believe the parasites were behind his madness.
And just like that, it ends. Gaul, defiant to the last, was judged insane by Eldex for all of his scheming and shackling the Vaadwaur to the neural parasites in exchange for technology. And it was all Gaul. Despite the lie we must now perpetuate, he was never corrupted by a malevolent third party. All his ambition, pride and delusional hatred was his own.
The remaining Vaadwaur have surrendered. What is your current situation?
Shaken. Gaul's dead, and we're in his command center by the looks of things.
Were you able to determine why he returned to the surface? It was a tactical error. Even if underspace was closed to him, Gaul would have had more opportunities to escape if he had remained in his ship.
He was running to something? I could use your deductive powers, Admiral. Would you join me?
Certainly. May I recommend 7, Captain Kim, the Doctor, and Neelix join us as well. Their insight may be valuable.
Absolutely. Sounds like things are quiet up there now anyhow. Gaul is presented as a very personal enemy for the player character if you choose to interpret it this way. And for Mark Hale here, the resentment came easily. Gaul in many ways was a tactical genius whose ruthless tactics secured the Vaadwaur supremacy in the quadrant in very little time. He is also a relic from another age, brought forwards without consent into a time, a galaxy quite unrecognisable from his own, emerging with outdated ships, forged in the fires of a conflict long documented as history and dropped into a galaxy in a new war. He led his people as best he could, made deals and secured alliances where he had to, but in doing so he tied his fate to that of another power, one so far beyond his own. It's often said that the most personal villains are the ones who reflect the protagonist, and in this case, Hale's predicament comes close enough to Gaul's that it rubs the wrong way. Still, what's done is done, and that madman's way led his civilization to ruin twice. It's the best we can do now to learn from his mistakes and prevent the same thing happening to the Federation and this fledgling Delta Alliance. We reach the centre where Gaul first broadcasts his confrontation to us, and we find the Admiral, 7, Kim, Neelix and the Doctor all here already.
Honestly, I wasn't sure about coming back to the Delta Quadrant. I have a family and a life back home, and the idea of being 70,000 light years away again wasn't appealing. But seeing the good we've done for the Gabali, and now stopping the Vaadwaur, I think we were needed here. You were needed. Thank you. It's been a pleasure serving with you. I hope we meet again.
I have a feeling we will, Captain Kim. The Delta Quadrant's not quite as big as it used to be.
While this conflict was regrettable, it was ultimately for the greater good. Gaul's hubris and ambition blinded him to the harm he was doing to the Delta Quadrant and his own people. Now the threat is ended. There will be time to heal the damage he has done.
Yes, sir, Admiral. But there's still unanswered questions. Those parasites are still a threat. And are they responsible for the Vaadwaur's technological leap?
War is just a pointless waste of life. Usually for a political reason that doesn't much matter in the long term anyway. I understand that sometimes we need to fight to defend those who cannot defend themselves. I respect that. But what Gaul was doing here was madness. It's one thing for him to want to rebuild his people. It's something entirely different to destroy dozens of worlds to do so.
Not to his mind. His philosophy is might makes right, and in his era, he was the mighty. To him, every action he took could be justified, and that is what made him so dangerous.
I'm not a man who normally dwells on revenge, but when Gaul and his soldiers attacked my people, it was almost all I could think about. Dexa helped me to see that death doesn't heal wounds of the heart, but thank you. This quadrant is safer now that Gaul and his soldiers are defeated, and I'm glad I was here to see it happen.
If someone as kind-hearted as Neelix could be blinded by revenge, even if only for a while, it just goes to show how warfare just perpetuates itself.
I was responsible for the return of the Vaadwaur. Even though Admiral Janeway told me she might have done the same thing, it was ultimately my actions that allowed all this destruction to happen. I participated in the assimilation of many different species during my time with the Borg. Those acts weigh on me. The wanton slaughter caused by the Vaadwaur will do so as well.
I feel those are two different things. You couldn't have known this is where Gaul's ambition would lead him.
Nevertheless, I am pleased I could, in some way, make up for my actions. By assisting the Touré, working with the Cooperative, and fighting the Vaadwaur here today, we have helped end what began more than 30 years ago when I activated those stasis tubes and freed the Vaadwaur. Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's true. Thank you for your contribution in stopping him. We couldn't have done it without you. Tan, busying herself on a tricorder, has detected an unusual energy reading from a panel in the far corner of the room. Even from here, now she points it out, we can see the differing purple glow from behind some slatted vent of some sorts. I had assumed it was part of some ventilation system, archaic and broken like the rest of this facility's structures, but perhaps not. Let's see if we can lift this panel. Huh. That's a sphere of some description. It's emanating some light patterns like the reflection of water ripples, and it seems like it's plugged into some Vaadwaur pylon or something, but the silver lattice of this orb itself appears to be so out of place with the utilitarian surroundings. Admiral?
Intriguing. This device is not familiar to me, but it does not appear to be of Vaadwaur origin. I will bring it back to Voyager for further analysis.
Righto, maybe this is what Gaul was going for. Either way, we'll need to look it over. It's a crying shame that the Vaadwaur was so militant and aggressive. What they could have told us of the 15th century Delta Quadrant, it would have been amazing, but instead, it's all ruins. We beam back to the Anglia and leave the system, and the Vaadwaur ships give us no trouble. Commander Eldex is going to have his hands full rebuilding his people for a while, I think.
Congratulations! Your leadership during the assault on Vaadwaur Prime and the subsequent defeat of Gaul was inspired. With Gaul's defeat and the destruction of his fleet, we've secured the Delta Quadrant against a terrible threat. And I hope this is the last we see of the neural parasites and infected Vaadwaur. Perhaps even more importantly, we've united many species of the Delta Quadrant against a common enemy. This bodes well for future diplomatic negotiations and operations in the Delta Quadrant. They've worked together once, they can do it again. However, the discovery of this artifact concerns me. Admiral Tuvok is leading an analysis. I'll contact you once we have more information.
We'll wait for that time. Well, Burgess is pleased, it seems, and his praise of our efforts is welcome, but let's not lose sight of the fact that we had to do a fair amount of scheming and blindsiding of our own to establish this alliance in the first place. And now, the public story is going to have to say that Gaul was being manipulated by the parasites to quell any further uprising attempts from any remaining loyal Vaadwaur. And if any stand up and try to claim that Gaul was right, well, now they'll be chastised for believing in a bluegill monster's plans, not a dedicated military commander, as insane as he may have been. Uniting the galaxy against them has proven to be the Vaadwaur's downfall twice now in their history, and only a fool tries the same thing several times and expects a different outcome. So, until we have more answers, we're on standby. But the Vaadwaur conflict is hopefully at an end, so we'll wait for the Admiral's call. And thank you for joining me as we explore the ever-expanding narrative of Star Trek Online, and I hope you'll join the crew again next week as we uncover just what returned the Vaadwaur as a threatening force in the Delta Quadrant. Thanks again, I've been Rick, and goodbye.